BP, oh, I just call a lot of slack. I'm not so happy with BP. But it's the government. They're asking, and that's the question I kept getting from journalists and town folks alike. What happened in the infrastructure of the government that let us, that failed us, that exposed us, that hurt us, that took everything away that we know? Um, and I don't have an answer. I wish I did, and I don't know how many of us have answers. But I will tell you that going down there often and keeping up with um, all the statistics and all the samples that are going on, it is recovering. Nature is taking over. I think she's taking her marshes back. I think a lot of it's evaporating, um, which is great. The nurseries that we all thought were going to be dead are actually pretty intact. All the nurseries that were incubating all the young species of all the Gulf seafood. I just think the question is how do we just never let this happen? I mean, I was there from day 7 up until I mean, in and out the whole time up until the end, and and when you drive down a beach and you are watching sea mammals that literally are covered in this oil, it breaks your heart. It breaks your heart. But what breaks your heart even more is when you go to the diner down the street and you see a little 4-year-old kid sitting at the diner stool, crying his eyes out because his mother is like convulsing because she has no money, can't pay anything. Everyone, all the diners, everything stopped. Everything ceased to exist, and these people were left high and dry. And seeing this, being an American and loving this country, and actually being from that part of this country and loving it, seeing these people and seeing what happened, uh, something I really hope I never see again. That no one in this room ever has to see again.
Compare this with Katrina, and I'm particularly interested in whether you think that social media at all changed the not only the national opinion, but whether it influenced
The response,
yeah.
this is again goes back to what we were talking about. It is unfathomable how quickly the response was using this social media. Um, these kids would take messages, articles, they would retweet them 50 times. And you're talking about, worldwide in excess of millions. I mean, millions and millions of people seeing these, way into the millions. So the response time was amazing. The amount of money raised while, dealing with a spill and a tragedy of this size, it just doesn't compare. But it was a lot of money. Um, we did a Larry King telethon. Didn't raise a ton of money, but the awareness, the power of that awareness blew my mind. It blew my mind, and it still does. And I think that we now have the ability to understand that this works. It works statistically. It works monetarily. It works on a level in which we can focus our energies in using this. So yeah, Katrina. I mean, Katrina probably we would have been a lot better off with Katrina, getting aid and money and mobilizing a lot faster than what we did with this spill. So I'm humbled by the fact that this exists and that we have this technology. I say we use it.
Now, besides shooting 12 hours a day and sending out 8 gazillion tweets, all of that, you're also a bit of an entrepreneur these days. And we were talking about this a little bit at lunch. Maybe you can tell the audience a little bit about the business that you've gotten into and how it might help me next time I have to go to an earthquake
Yeah.
in Haiti or
Yeah.
a hurricane in Louisiana.
Well, it is an interesting thing. I mean, we ask ourselves, there's obviously there is a giant need for power, and I'll make this really painless. I promise. But there's an increasing need for worldwide, excuse me, and in disaster relief situations for off-grid, uninterruptible power. And I was fortunate enough to come across a group of engineers and some amazing people, and we started a company called Go Green Mobile Power, which actually is a wind, solar, and B100 biodiesel uninterruptible power generators. They're for many applications, whether it's, and they're mil spec. I mean, these things can be dropped out of a C-130 in a parachute. They're unbelievable, but they are true off-the-grid power making machines. And whether it's in Haiti, they also have atmospheric water machines on them. I think our largest unit produces 6,000 liters a day. Imagine having had that at Katrina or Haiti, dropping them into any situation for troops, medical, surgical units, command posts, what have you. But the end of, I mean, I guess what I'm getting at as well is Mayor Villaraigosa, and because the city of Los Angeles is looking for ways to produce green jobs. How do we find technologies that are actually going to allow us to produce green jobs? Well, we brought in this technology sort of on a silver platter and sort of named us the poster child for green energy in Los Angeles, which is great because we have manufacturing facilities there. Other governmental bodies are looking at it. But even companies like Warner Brothers now stepping up, Sony. We're retrofitting solar and wind turbines on production vehicles that, when was the last time that a generator was offered to produce power that while it's sitting idle is still producing power? The Department of Water and Power, or California Transportation Department, has these massive parking lots full of all these vehicles. Well, we're designing these vehicles to sit there in the sun and in the wind, producing power, kicking that to a distro box, and then shooting that back out into the grid. So we're actually producing power sitting idly, and I think that we can relieve a lot of our energy problems with the use of this technology.
But isn't one of the concerns that you always hear about green businesses is whether they can actually be profitable businesses, whether they can, generate enough revenue to pay for the technology and the manufacturing that's required and the distribution. Well, apparently there's our answer.
That was fun. That was fun.
I'd imagine you and your business partners have sat down and crunched numbers. What do those numbers tell you in the current economic climate?
In the current economic climate, they are so unbelievably comparable. I think some actually exceeding regular prices of generators by virtue of the fact that there's so many tax incentives that are now in place. The incentives to get this sort of green technology out there. But here's the thing. The world is moving to LED lighting, which is great, and they're making it beautiful, looks like halogen, it's sexy. Using wind and solar energy like this, it blew my mind how much power and how cost effective it ends up being. Because what happens is these power supplies and generators actually, in the long run, with all these tax incentives, they end up not only paying for themselves, but they're generating cash flow. And so for big corporations, I think this is something that is it's good for them to see, and I think that it's going to be great. It's going to be great for a lot of reasons, a lot of applications, whether it's for medical reasons, military reasons, and most importantly to us, disaster relief. Because being from Louisiana, being from New Orleans, and having seen what I saw is just, it's brutal.
Can you hear me? We're having there we go. So we have time for 3 questions from the audience for Ian. And I want to encourage you to go ahead and eat your dessert. It's in the middle of the table there. It's good. I've already eaten mine.
Some of those cool little...
Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know what you call that. Some new cool design for chocolate desserts.
Weebles.
So anybody have a question for Ian?
I don't blame you.
Go ahead. I think we can hear you if you just stand up. Okay.
Given that, over hundreds of thousands of people that are following you on Twitter, I don't know if you have Facebook or other things, it's a tremendous responsibility that you have as a person for influencing these teenagers. Can you talk, speak a little bit about, does that influence you when you're sitting down the tweet and
In fact, you have more followers than Glenn Beck and way more followers than Nancy Pelosi.
It is, you know what, it is, it's a question that, that, yes, I ask myself often. And the reality of it is, I would never abuse that, but it is a social responsibility, and I'm grateful for it. And I think that every single one of us in this room, for various reasons or another, could benefit from this.
So what percent would you say of your tweets are environmentally related?
Oh my goodness, half or more than half, probably.
And can you just give us an idea of what you might tweet?
There were, say, again, the Washington Post, an amazing article comes out that whacks me while I'm sitting having my coffee in the
I
morning.
like this guy.
Whoa. In response to a policy or an environmental disaster, whatever's happening, this article goes out, and say there's even 750,000 kids are on their way to school, and they read this thing, and it might have little or no effect, or it might have a profound effect on them throughout the day.
So they might not find the article on their own, but if you tweet to them, hey, this is interesting, suddenly they read it.
They do, and a lot of the stuff, I make it purposely stuff that they wouldn't find, that would be much more difficult to access in news media that they just wouldn't be privy to, things. So it's a lot of fun, and it is the social responsibility I take really seriously,